Chris Ballard said a lot of things yesterday, and look, I've lived in Indianapolis for 3 years now. Listened to a fairly decent amount of Chris Ballard press conferences, and I've noticed this trend about Chris Ballard, just the way that he discusses things. So there's a saying, in sports, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is. There's a saying that general managers are concerned about what the team is going to look like in 5 years. And coaches are worried about what the team looks like right now. And it makes sense because the coach's job is directly dependent upon how many games they win that year right now. Whereas for the general manager, their job is dependent upon being able to sell the future to the owner of like, hey, I know that we went, 7-10 this year, but we got this new quarterback. We're thinking we'll go, 10-7 next year. And then the year after that, we'll go 13-4 and we'll be competing for Super Bowls every year. Like that is how the general manager keeps his job. Whereas, coaches are, I got to win right now or I'm going to get fired. And it creates this interesting push and pull between the two. And I was thinking about this and I was like, you know what? General managers direct franchises like how my wife drives when we go on vacation. My wife, good driver. Okay, like not going to cut people off. Very, defensive driver. I know that when she's driving, we're pretty safe, right? Like I know that, but she is incredibly patient when she drives. She's going to set the cruise control to the speed limit, and we're going to just kind of creep along the interstate while we're heading to, wherever we're going. And love her. She's great. It's good that she's patient. But, man, it drives me crazy whenever we're driving. We're going, like, under the speed limit. She's like, oh, Jonathan, I found this new song that I really like. Can we listen to it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. We listen to the song. And then she's like, oh, I found this new podcast that I really like. Can we listen to it? I'm like, yeah, that's great. Can you just go, like, a little bit faster? Can we just go, like, 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, please? And, she's very patient. And I believe that this is how general managers build their teams, very patiently, not in a rush, just, very patient. Whereas coaches, they want to direct franchises like how I drive on vacation. I'm not putting the car on cruise control. I'm getting in the left lane. I'm going by everybody, and we're going to get to our destination as quickly as possible. Okay, that's saying that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Yeah, that's a bunch of hooey. It's about the destination. Okay, I'm going, to the beach because I want to be at the beach, not because I want to be on the interstate for the next 12 hours. That's just kind of the way that I view it. And I believe that's how coaches are as well. They are impatient. They want to win right now. And when I look at Chris Ballard, he is the most patient. And I think that is one of his biggest issues. When you listen to him do press conferences and, he's asked about, the secondary, or he's asked about, Anthony Richardson, whatever. It's always about development. It's never about this season. Hey, Chris Ballard, what do you think about Nick Cross? I think he just needs more reps. He's young. He needs more plays. He needs more opportunities. He hasn't played a ton of football. And eventually, when he gets enough reps, then he'll be good. And it's the same thing with Anthony Richardson. Hey, Chris Ballard, what do you think about Anthony Richardson this year? Oh, he's really young. He's 22. He only played 12 quarters last year. And, I thought when he did play, he was good, but he just needs more reps. He's going to be up and down because he hasn't had enough reps, and eventually he'll be good. That is the bulk of the message that we hear from Chris Ballard whenever he talks about players and the team. It's never about right now. It is always about what's coming up down the road. It's always about what's going to happen in 5 years. And part of it is understandable because he is the general manager. And him keeping his job is directly tied to the future of the Colts. Okay? Like he has to be able to walk into Jim Irsay's office and Jim Irsay say, hey, why did we go 9-8? And then the answer is, well, Anthony Richardson was a rookie. We think that when he gets, a few more reps, we'll be good enough to do, whatever. And then Jim Irsay has to buy whatever Chris Ballard's selling, say, okay, and then send him on his merry way. But here's the thing. Yes, general managers are supposed to be concerned about the future. It's incredibly important. But, but general managers still have to have the presence of mind to realize when they need to make a move for the current season. Look, I haven't been. I've lived in Indianapolis for 3 years. Haven't seen Chris Ballard do this. He is yet to show that he has a concern for the current season. Everything appears to be about the future. And if you don't believe me, let's just look at this offseason. Colts linebackers, solid. Defensive line, heavily invested in. That defensive line is going to be good this year. Offensive line, bringing a bunch of guys back. Everyone tells me that this Colts offensive line is supposed to be good. There's been investment at receiver over these past couple of years. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce apparently had a good camp. Adonai Mitchell they're bringing in. Michael Pittman Jr. had a great year last year. They're good at running back. Jonathan Taylor. There's some questions around Anthony Richardson, but there's clearly confidence that Shane Steichen is going to help Anthony Richardson have a good year. The one glaring hole in the team is secondary, especially at the cornerback position. And it's in moments like those where Chris Ballard needs that light bulb to go off and say, you know what? If we have a great corner this year, if we can bring one in, we could be really good. And instead of people talking about how everyone's sleeping on the Colts, even though apparently everyone is, instead of that being the conversation around Indianapolis, they brought in L'Jarius Sneed. If they had made that trade, I think people would be excited about the Colts. The conversation wouldn't be, the Colts, they might sneak into the playoffs. No, I think the conversation would be, hey, the Colts could win the division. But instead of making that move that clearly needed to be made, like that trade for L'Jarius Sneed needed to happen for the Colts. Instead of doing that, Schmidt's like, let's give Juju Brents some more reps because that's what he needs. That way he'll be good in 3 years. Let's give Jalen Jones a few more reps. That way, he's good in, about 3 years or whatever it is. There is no switch that goes off in Chris Ballard's mind that says, hey, we have an opportunity to be good right now if I do this. That switch just doesn't exist in his brain. It doesn't. At some point, the best general managers, especially Brett Veach in Kansas City, they have to be able to flip that switch of, hey, we have an opportunity to be good this year, so we should probably do that. Especially when you haven't made the playoffs in 3 years. You would think that, that switch would be dying to get flipped. But for Chris Ballard, it isn't.